Tutorial for Nocode HQ, and today's tutorial is going to be a second part to our popular tutorial showcasing you how to convert your bubble application into a mobile application. And today's video I want to discuss a few things, tell you what kind of options you have, and give you some tips on how to prepare your bubble app to be used as a mobile application, because obviously more and more apps and websites are viewed on mobile devices. I don't have the number in my head right now, but it's definitely the biggest part of website access and app accesses are via smartphones. Obviously, we all have a smartphone, or most of us have a smartphone in their pocket all the time. It's the new way to interact with websites and access information, use apps, and so on and so forth. So it's obviously really, really important that your bubble app, first of all, works on smartphones, looks good on smartphones, and even go a step further and really have an app with things like push notifications, obviously submitting the app to the app stores and the Play Store, and all of these things that make the experience more native and just enhance user experience, because most people will access your website, your app via a smartphone, except you have something that is very specific to desktop devices, but I would say in most cases it's not. So what I'm going to do in this tutorial, I will first of all go through some key points that you want to keep in mind when building a mobile application, and then I want to discuss some options that you have, because we actually have a few applications published live and used by lots of users every day, and we both have native apps published in the Apple Store and the Google Play Store, as well as some PWAs. So we have some experience, and I would just like to with you go through all of these options you have, and just to keep, things to keep in mind. So first of all, let's start off with appearance and building the actual application. So obviously, you will build your Bubble app within Bubble, but there are a few things that you might want to think about and keep in mind when building your Bubble app. So first of all, I recommend building the application. If you have, let's say you have a web app, and then building the actual mobile app within the same Bubble app instead of creating a new Bubble app. So let me explain what I mean. So this is just a demo application here where we have some demo plugin pages, but let's assume this is our whole Bubble application, and we have something like Airbnb, a listings platform for real estate or apartments. And we have all these pages. We have the home page, we have a listings page, a profile page, and so on and so forth. And then after maybe being in business half a year, you decide, okay, now what I want to do, I want to actually build a mobile app for the owners of the listings so that they can manage their bookings. Okay. And you want to because a lot of owners of apartments on your platform have asked for that, you want to create this app and you want to publish it to the App Store and the Play Store, also just because there's this, like, a layer of security and trust regarding these stores. So in this case, what I would recommend is, instead of creating a new Bubble app, a complete new Bubble app, and building the mobile app there and then kind of connecting it to your main application, just create a new page and call that app, for example, okay, or whatever you want, doesn't matter. And then create the page and then build a whole mobile app just within this page. Because what I will show you in a second anyway is the recommended way is to build a single page app. So you will build your mobile app within one whole page. You won't create any other new pages. So what's the advantage of building it within the same application? Well, you can design and build the app as however you want, the mobile app. There's no restrictions, but the great thing is you directly have access to the same database and all the things you have within your main application. So just as an example, if I build now the admin app, mobile app for my real estate or for my apartment owners, instead of connecting it via APIs to my main application, all I can do is simply have buttons here which signs up the user using the same database, so it's the same account as in the main application. All the data regarding the listings, regarding bookings, can be automatically taken from my database, just because it's a single page here within my main application. So this is one thing I definitely recommend. And then let's jump to the next tip. So let's start off with the build for smaller screen. So what do I mean by that? Again, we're building our mobile app here on this page called app, and this page will just be 4 apps, okay, for the mobile app. And what you want to do is, this is right now not in a responsive engine, but you can upgrade that, no problem. But nonetheless, what I would recommend is, instead of what you probably usually do in Bubble, you have your wide editor, and then you try to make it responsive for smaller sizes. I would recommend starting off with a smaller size, okay? Designing for the small UI screen first, because it will be easier for a smaller screen to increase in size if the size is increased, the width of the screen, instead of the opposite way. Because if you design the UI in a small cramped space, it will be easier for it to expand afterwards if the screen increases. Instead, if you try to build a mobile app UI on a large screen, this will be kind of, first of all, confusing for yourself, and also it will be harder to look nice if the screen decreases. And also there's this actually small hidden checkbox here, which is called "This page is a native app," and if you check that, actually nothing really happens. But a few tips here are given by Bubble. So you say change the page width to something like 640 times 320. So also something very small. You shouldn't change pages in the apps. We're going to take a look at that in a second, and check out our plugin elements that feel more native. That's also what we're going to take a look at in a second. So what you want to do is then really decrease the width. So maybe what they said, 320 times 640, okay? And then really design your application here on this this small screen, okay? And it will automatically look nicer and also adjust if the actual screen is bigger, okay? All right, let me take a look at the second tip, which is groups, okay? So as explained in our first tutorial already, what you don't want to do in a mobile app, you don't want to change pages. For example, I don't know, there's a menu item, you click on that and then it changes to another page. You don't want to do that because that's not at all a native feeling for a mobile app. What you want to do instead, you want to have lots of different groups within the same page. So for example, we have here group 1, okay? And then you can do something like, you can call that group, I don't know, home screen, for example, okay? Okay, and then what we usually like to do, we also showed in our tutorial, we have our tab bar at the bottom. So we actually really redesign the usual app design, okay? So let me adjust that here. So this is our app bar, let's call that app bar. And for example, there's lots of ways to do this. For example, what you can do, you can add a state to this app bar, and you can say, all right, the state is called current tab, for example, okay, of type text. The default value will be home, okay? And then you can easily add conditionals, such as for our group here, home screen, you can say, all right, this is not visible on page load, but conditional when tab bar, do we call it tab bar? App bar. When app bar's current tab is home, this element is visible. And then you can, here in the elements tree, hide that, or I can just also copy this group, let's hide it, and then create another group. And this one we're gonna call, I don't know, listings, okay, or my listings, whatever. And then we can say when app bar's current tab is my listings, this is visible. And using this, you can have lots of different groups. And to be honest, we have one application, I can't show that right now, but we literally have one application which has, I think, almost 80 hidden groups within the same page, and there's no performance issue at all. So believe me when I say this is entirely possible, and it works fine with lots of users every day. And then you can do something like having icons here. So for example, I don't know, the home icon here, let's have like a home icon like this, all right. And then I don't know, a listings icon. The design obviously is now not nice, but just to showcase to you. Okay, and then you can say, okay, when the home icon is pressed, I want to set the state of my app bar to home. Let's copy this workflow, and when I click this icon here, I want to set the state to my listings. All right, and then also you can, just to see if it works, I'm going to add a text here, which is going to be my listings, okay, and then under home screen, Let's also add a text, welcome. Just to show you that it works, let's quickly preview that. Obviously the screen will now expand because I'm on a desktop here device, but usually this then would be used on a mobile app. But you can see it's expanded here, so you can see we have the group here, our welcome home group. Basically, if I click on listing, it says my listings, and I can switch between these groups, and it feels completely immediate because both are loaded on page load. And we could have even more groups, even more icons, no problem, and it gives the whole application an entirely native feel, okay? So this is another thing you want to keep in mind. Another tip, which also Bubble said in their pop-up before, is using native elements. So what does that mean? Well, it means also using plugins, such as one thing that's always quite nice is the Ionic Elements library by Bubble. It's already installed. I'm going to show it to you in a second. And we also have via our plugin developer. Let me find that. Yeah, there. Anticode. We have lots of plugins also. For example, iOS style spinner, which is a spinner that is completely identical, looks exactly identical to the typical iOS loading spinner that you know. You can use this plugin, or we also have an iOS notifications plugin. I think so. Let's search for that. Where is it? Let me try style spinner, and yes, here iOS style notifications. And this one also allows you to have alerts, modals, and these typical action sheets that you know from iOS applications. So using plugins to kind of recreate the complete native feel. And if you do a good job and use plugins and really recreate that feeling, I can assure you that most users won't notice the difference if it's really custom coded or if it's built using Bubble. So let's take a look at these Ionic elements. So you have a few things. You have things like icons, which are quite great. They also have this nice mobile feel to them. So I would also use these Ionic elements icons instead of the standard icons. But also we have these great things which you know from applications such as a toggle. That's really, really useful. You know, these typical toggles, they have a really native feel to them, which you can press and they are untoggled or toggled like this. And then we have ranges, or these typical sliders that you know, also really useful. And we also have checkboxes, which are also, of course, for things like to-do lists and things like that. And these elements really help you to try to recreate the native experience that you want to recreate, because customers and users, they expect such kind of behavior if they have a mobile app. They don't want loading times because that's not normal for apps. They don't want weird web style UI. They want a native feel. And this is why there are all these tips using these custom groups, custom states and groups, using these custom elements that really enhance the UI feeling. And yeah, allow you to basically recreate the native application. So if we just summarize again, try to build your application on a small width, okay? Build on a single page and use hidden groups to change menus basically. Use native icons, native elements, other plugins that allow you to recreate the experience, and really try to rebuild the typical UI of an application. Also in this case, almost all or most apps I know, they have this typical app bar at the bottom, you know, with these different menu items. Users know this UI, they accept this UI, so you can really recreate and build that in Bubble yourself. And if you have good design skills, you can really design it in a way that's almost indistinguishable from a native app bar or tab bar that is built in custom code. So this is regarding preparation. Now let me discuss, I want to discuss some the options of actually then going native. There's basically two options, using a native, or converting your Bubble app into a native app, okay? What does native app mean? Well, basically we take the application, the Bubble app, we wrap it within custom code actually, which then allows us to really submit this Bubble app wrapped to the app stores, the Apple App Store and the Android or Google Play Store. And then you really have an app listed in the App Store. The other option is having a progressive web app, okay? And both options have their pros and cons. I can go through them. Um, Obviously, the pro of a PWA is that it's much easier. You simply wrap or convert your Bubble app into a progressive web app. You don't have to ask anyone for permission like Apple, Google. You can immediately publish it, and it allows you to basically, or allows users to install your Bubble app onto their home screen of their smartphones, and then I'll always open the PWA. It's not in a browser; it's an actual app, and it's a great way also to simply offer that to users. And then the way I would recommend to do that, and disclaimer, it's our plugin. We have this great plugin called Progressive Web App. Where is it? Let me find it again. PWA, Progressive Web App plus Offline. That's our plugin here. We have lots of tutorials showcasing you how to set that up. And as it already says, this plugin allows you to convert your Bubble app into a progressive web app. And also we give the functionality of offline caching. So this will basically allow you to take a screen, and then if the internet connection of the user is gone, the screen will still be visible and the user can still read the content. And also the PWA will offer things like a splash screen. So every time that the PWA loads, a splash screen is shown. So lots of few nice things, and really enhances the experience and gives kind of the feeling of a native app. But obviously there are cons. First con is it's not in the App Store and Play Store, which for some people is quite important. As I said already, it gives some sense of trust, and also it's a marketing channel. And of course, the installing method of PWAs is still not ideal. For example, in iOS, Apple still does really not give the possibility to have like one tap install. Users have to manually click and say add this app to the home screen. It's not ideal. Maybe Apple will change it in the future, I'm not sure. But it's not as easy as just going to the App Store, clicking on install, and that's it. Another con is that things like push notifications don't really work, especially on iOS devices. They don't support that. So if you want to have some advanced native functionality, this won't work with a PWA. So this is a PWA, a great option, also a quite cheap option. For example, just using our plugin, paying $49, and you're good to go. The other option obviously is using native apps, or wrapping your Bubble app into a native app. And as I mentioned already, basically the cons of the PWA are the pros of the native app. So you can use things like push notifications, use other native features such as Apple Pay, for example, and all of these native things you have. Obviously, the con is you will have to really submit your application to the App Store, the Google Play Store. Google is not strict, but Apple is really strict. So if your app kind of feels not native enough, the UI isn't nice, and it just feels, if the website is wrapped, Apple will definitely not accept it. So you really have to do your best there to really recreate the feeling of a native app, because Apple will be really strict regarding that. And if you decide to go with a native app, there's a few options I can recommend. I have 3 options. I won't say one of them is the best. I tried all of them. So let's just jump through that. So a quite famous one for Bubble users is BDK. BDK is a project by a Bubble user which allows you to wrap your Bubble app into a native application for iOS or iOS and Android. And the great thing here is, because it's completely built for Bubble, it allows you to trigger all of the native features within your app using plugins. So for example, let's find that BDK here. Yeah, there's this plugin called Native Apps BDK, and this plugin allows you to have all of this functionality just by using the plugin within your Bubble app. So for example, this would be then an action when on a click on a button, you want to show an iOS alert, and you can trigger all of that from Bubble directly, and you will receive your build via BDK. So it's a really, really great service. I actually used it for 3 apps, I believe. So I can highly recommend it. Obviously, there are cons as well. The first con, I would say, or just actually one con, and that you have to think about is at the end of the day, you don't really receive the code of the bill, and that's something that makes me a bit nervous sometimes because what happens if the owner of BDK doesn't work for it anymore or stops or anything happens and your whole application, the code is dependent on that, and you don't have no access to changing it, or there's no way to see what's behind. That makes me sometimes nervous. So that's something you have to think about. You're not in full control, but despite that, it's a really great solution. For a solution which gives you more control, is Webview Gold. Um, I also use this for two applications already. Can also recommend it, but you will have to keep in mind this will require some manual setup. Even though it says easy setup here, you will have to do things like install Xcode, go into the code here and just simply change some things. It's really simple. It's documented really well, but you will still have to do some minor tweaking. But it also has or allows you to have all of this functionality like splash screens, in-app tabs, cookies, and so on and so forth, push notifications, um, and it gives you obviously full control. So you will actually here you will receive a build with the actual code files, and you can go inside the code files, you can change it, update it, etc. It's in your on your PC, on your computer. You have full access to that. For example, this gives me or makes me less nervous because I'm in control. But it's obviously harder to set up than BDK, and BDK actually offers a bit more features also because it's directly made for Bubble applications. So also a great solution, and quite similar to that is Go Native. Also quite simple. You just enter URL. It is wrapped, and you can just then you will receive a bill which you can immediately publish. I would say in terms of native functionality from these three options, this has the least functionality. Um, but depends on what you want to do. So this is quite Go Native is quite a famous company, and it's also quite expensive as you can see. But yeah, I haven't used it yet, but I only heard good things about it as well. Also a usable option that you can take a look at. So yeah, these three options that I can recommend: BDK, Go Native, and Webview Gold. Are all quite good options to wrap your Bubble app into a native application. Then obviously you'll have to submit it to the App Store and the Play Store. But then once they're submitted, you're usually good to go. And then obviously the great thing is if you update the app via your Bubble app, it's immediately updated in the actual mobile app as well. And you don't have to submit an update every time. So that's a quite big pro as well. So yeah, lots of information here that I've given you. As I mentioned, we have a few apps published in the App Store, Google Play Store. Everything works fine so far. Push notifications works fine as well. Both PWA native are great options. It really depends on what you want to do, what you want to build, and who your customers are, your target audience. So I won't say that one or the other is better. It just really depends. But yeah, that's basically it. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Or send us an email. We can definitely help you set up your mobile application. And we also have some other videos that showcase how to set up our PWA plugin and just some general tips on building mobile apps in Bubble. So thank you for watching, and see you guys for next tutorial of Nocode HQ. Bye.